we will be proceeding in our usual way. We will make a summary of the main events and developments, then we'll outline the 5 key developments, and then we'll close with indication about developments ahead of us during the month of June. We will be also in the second part, then the online communities will have their regional discussion as we usually proceed. Now we'll start with the first summary. Next slide, please. Okay, over the last few weeks, there were few important events here in Geneva and internationally. There was the 3rd meeting of the CSTD Working Group on Enhanced Cooperation, which discusses the governance framework in the field of Internet governance. RIPE meeting in Budapest, CSTD Commission of Science and Technology for Development meeting in Geneva, VERSIS Forum open consultations in the preparation of VERSIS Forum, which will be held in June. There was multi-stakeholder forum on science, technology and innovation for SDGs in New York, quite an important event covering a wider range of science and technology issues, but also a question of ICT. ITU Council in Geneva, CIDIG meeting, Southeast Europe Dialogue on Internet Governance in Ohrid, which covered the developments in the sub-region in this field. G7 meeting in Taormina, which was finished last weekend, and Global Forum on Cyber Expertise annual meeting, which preparation started today. Those are the main events. You got our newsletter, draft newsletter, and you got also PDF version of it. Next slide. Next, please. Now, as always, we are trying to provide some sort of barometer coverage of the major developments and indicating what type of pressure we have. As you know, the question of global IG architecture, the pressure remains more or less the same. There were a few developments. Microsoft CEO, president, basically announced reiterate the need for the Digital Geneva Convention in the outcome on WannaCry cybersecurity attack. We'll focus on it later on. The UK Conservative Party, which according to the latest poll has the highest chance to win the elections, for the first time indicated the need for the international legal instrument in the field of digital policy and the international legal norms, which is a major change for the UK, which has been very, very reluctant when it comes to the legal instruments. And G7 has put pressure on internet companies and internet service providers to increase their effort to remove extremist content, among other issues. Sustainable development remain also the same. Security has been in the higher focus with WannaCry, with the US President cybersecurity executive order, and Microsoft's latest paper on cybersecurity and Internet of Things, providing another warning about the risk in this field. On e-commerce, we have the major development was the Advocate General view on the Uber case. We'll tackle it later on. Alphabet, Google's parent company, had to pay 306 million to settle a long-term tax dispute with the Italian government. And then we have the questions related to digital rights, a question of Economic Commission of dealing with Facebook and Turkey blocking Wikipedia and China launching its own parallel Wikipedia application. On jurisdiction, we had more or less the similar pressure. Infrastructure remain also the same. Net neutrality came into the focus with the latest move from the US Federal Communication Commission, which may revisit the net neutrality rule and the principle of open internet, which was introduced 2 years ago. On the new technologies, there are the researches on Internet of Things, partnership on artificial intelligence, and we'll have next week an interesting event on artificial intelligence for good here in Geneva. We'll tackle 5 major developments outlined by our expert team, and we'll go to top trends in digital policy in May. Please, next. And you can move to the first one. Ransomware attack on the internet, WannaCry. I'm sure that you have been following it carefully. the developments, it got high media coverage. And as you know, basically this is the ransom attack which was delivered by using internet worms. It affected many computers worldwide. Some estimates is 200,000, but although figures is difficult to get through, there were few issues. There is technological issue. What was the technology behind WannaCry? And how does the ransomware work? And is there any way to prevent the future developments in the similar field? Here we got to the question of the Digital Geneva Convention, and during our webinar, who some of you attended it, we asked the question, if the Digital Geneva Convention were in the force, could have it prevented the WannaCry attack? And more or less our conclusion was that it would have not prevented this type of ransomware attack because of the architecture of the internet. But it would have made this action more punishable. It would increase the cost for the cyber criminals, and it would also provide cooperation among the computer experts and governments in dealing with the investigation and forensic. That first part on technology is an interesting part, and here the Microsoft proposed in Digital Geneva Convention some sort of expert pool consisting mainly by professionals, computer experts from the internet companies, which would advise international organizations and governments how to deal with that. There was a question who was behind the attack. There were some rumors that there were some governments, cyber criminal syndicates and gangs, but I'm afraid that it will be very, very difficult to identify who initiated the attack, because the attack used the heavily deep or dark web. Therefore, the possibility for camouflaging the real source of attack was very, very high. There is one question that we investigated in our the latest issue of the digital our Digital Watch newsletter. The question is, why was the amount of ransom so low? Because according to Bitcoin, we followed what is the one transparency of this attack. You can follow what was the ransom which was paid by people who were basically attacked. And when we concluded our issue, well, 2 days ago, the fee that was paid, ransom that was paid, was only 100,006 US dollars, which is almost peanuts for the cybersecurity attacks. And we, as you will see from the text, we opened the discussion, what was the reason? And there are different reasons. First, that security was a bit better. There was this British guy who managed to establish the website, which was a part of ransomware. By the way, code was done in a bit of amateurish way. It wasn't as sophisticated as one would expect from such a serious attack. Some explanations are going to the sort of conspiracy theory that cybersecurity industry and company sort of inflated the whole incident in order to increase, obviously, demand for their services. Therefore, there are all sorts of explanation of the discrepancy between low ransom which was paid and high media visibility. But you can see it in the coverage in the newsletter. Next, please. The next major development, and it has been continuous development since the beginning of the year. Those of you who have been following carefully our monthly briefings probably could notice that this trend of increasing relevance of the role of the courts in digital policy. The situation is relatively simple. With the lack of the policy rules, the courts are filling this gap. Citizens are going and using their right to justice. They are going to the courts and they are asking the courts to basically rule on the questions related to their rights. European Court of Justice is particularly active. It introduced right to be forgotten in Costea's case a few years ago, which made now the Google of the biggest juridical body in the world, processing 500,000 requests for right to be forgotten annually. There was a case on the question of privacy shield, and now the latest case, which have been awaited for quite some time, is on the Uber company, Uber case, which incidentally I don't know if it is coincidence, was also initiated like right to be forgotten by Spanish authorities. They basically asked European Court of Justice to rule on the question if Uber is transportation or information company. Everybody in the ICT and the legal community, there is a lot of excitement about this development, and there was the first sort of hint that with the announcement of the Attorney General, that according to his views, and usually his sort of statements indicate what will come and will come with the official ruling, was he argued basically that Uber is transportation company. Uber is not information company. It means that if that ruling is applied, it means that Uber will have to follow all rules for transportation companies. It will become just another taxi company. Therefore, security, employment, and other rules will be implemented. Now, the question is extremely interesting because, again, the judges have to decide, is it information or transportation company? I would say if I had a chance, I wouldn't go for this binary solution because it will be basically, this ruling can completely torpedo Uber business model. And it will stop the innovation and dynamism in this field. And this is a perfect example, if it happens, how the juridical decisions could solve the otherwise very analog and very complex issue in very binary logic, yes or no. Uber is transportation company or Uber is information company. Yes, it's true that Uber is transportation company, but unique transportation company. What is a possible lesson for policy communities? The less we provide some sort of balanced, inclusive, well-thought policies, the more juridical bodies worldwide will move in and fill this gap. And this is the clear trend since the beginning of the year, and it is very likely to accelerate in the coming months. Next. Next slide, please. Another U-turn, as I indicated, is net neutrality. UN Federal Communication Commission voted to start the process that may roll back the net neutrality rules. Currently, it's open for public comments till August, and basically, its proposal envisaged to repeal general conducts that allows the Commission to investigate business model of internet providers that may be uncompetitive. And after the public comment period, proposal can be modified before being put to a final vote in the Commission. But in the gist, the net neutrality principle is likely to be challenged, and we may get to the ultimate principle situation in which the internet traffic will have a different treatment. It is, in the very simplified view, it would be lost for the Silicon Valley and victory for telecommunication companies, since they will be able to charge different type of fees for different type of services, from some sort of VIP internet to the slower internet. Therefore, we'll be following carefully what will be happening. Obviously, the question of regulation in the United States is of utmost relevance for the global internet. Next, please. Another field which was also indicated in our prediction at the beginning of the year, that taxation is becoming a big issue. And companies are now engaging into the bilateral settlements with the governments, in particular in Europe. Alphabet made a settlement with Italy for 360 million euros for period 2002-2015. In October, Facebook also paid 4.2 million to British tax authorities. And we can expect more of the bilateral tax arrangement. The reason is very simple. The current taxation rules, including Ottawa principle of OECD, cannot handle the situation in which you don't have the direct financial transaction like Google or Facebook model. And in these cases, the only way to settle financial issues, fiscal issues, taxation issue, is through bilateral arrangement. Basically what Italian government argued, they said, okay, Facebook, in this case Google, managed to gain quite a substantive financial gain by accessing the Italian market from Italian users. And they calculated that this is the taxes which Google could have paid if it was traditional advertising company operating in Italy. And as it always happens in the digital policy, other regions are following what's going on in Europe, and we can expect more of these bilateral arrangements. It hints we can draw two sorts of conclusions. One is that we lack the rules for the taxation of the internet industry. And the second is that internet companies are becoming aware that tax withholding or not paying a tax is not doing them, at least in the public image, if not in creating more stable society on which they have to operate. Next. Next slide. Another, as you can see, there is a strong focus on the economic, digital commerce and financial issues. Another data protection agencies sanctioned Facebook over privacy breach, French data protection agency, and there are investigations in 4 other countries, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and Belgium. There, it raises the question of jurisdiction. Most of internet companies, big internet companies are incorporated in Ireland, and they argue that they are part of European Union policy and jurisdiction space. Other governments on the question of privacy in this case, but also in the question of fiscal issues, are arguing that it has to be that sort of jurisdictional principle has to be in a way complemented by more rights for the national jurisdictions. General data protection role, and you have the crosswords at the end of this document, will increase the power of the European data authorities. It is going to enter into the force on the 25th of May next year, and it is very likely to create a major earthquake in global digital policy. If it is implemented in the way how it is drafted, there are some discussion that implementation may be softened, but it will, for example, introduce the question of data portability. Therefore, Facebook has to provide us as a users possibility, very simple possibility, to download all of our data and to move to some other service. There are questions of standardization, compatibility. There are many, many open issues. European data authorities will also require from anyone dealing with the data of European citizens to follow the regulations in the general data protection rules. Therefore, if there is a company in Canada, in Thailand, in Japan, if it deals with European data, it will have to follow the European data protection rules. Some discussions are that basically, de facto, Europe will create a global data protection policy. As you can imagine, data is the oil of new economy, is very crucial for the new economy, and this development will create a major earthquake in the global digital policy. Frankly speaking, I don't see how it is going to be implemented, but because there are some issues which are difficult technically and logically to implement. Therefore, there will be a lot of I would say, discussions in the first part of 2018 how it is going to be implemented. What we know that all major internet companies significantly strengthen their offices in Brussels, and they're trying to see what to do because, for example, for US internet companies, it's not only a question of Europe, it's a question of other regions most likely following the similar rules. Therefore, we'll be following that carefully. We have a page on it, and that will be one of the major trends which will be in the focus over the next 10 years. Just to bring it back home to Geneva, for example, international organizations started discussing how they are going to handle data of European citizens. And there was some discussion that they may negotiate with Brussels some sort of privacy shield, like US governments, because once the data, let's say, from the Spanish authority is sent to the WHO, personal data, it has to be handled according to these new rules. When we say about new rules, we speak about policies, appointment of the people who will be data protection experts. It's like a standardization process, therefore it will be very, very heavy exercise. Next. Okay, here are the major events in June. We have now International Conference of CyCon on cyber conflicts in Tallinn, which starts today. NANOG 70 Washington, it's a very interesting meeting for those of you who are the North America Network Operation Group. It is a place where basically internet operators come and trade, they call it eyeballs. Eyeballs means number of internet users. How many internet users you come, let's say, from Switzerland, they say, in Geneva, I have this network and I have 100,000 users. And then you get better peering arrangement with the internet companies, with the Swisscom or French Telecom and other things. It's like a big bazaar where they basically trade the traffic and the sort of peering arrangement on the global level. European Dialogue on Internet Governance will start in Tallinn. Very interesting event, as always, in Estonia, being one of the leaders in digital field. They're going to organize really interesting and dynamic event. UN Human Rights Council, it will have a 35th session in Geneva. I guess there will be some panel on the fake news. There will be probably discussion on the privacy, and there will be, as always, some discussions on internet-related issues. ITU will host Artificial Intelligence for Good Global Summit in Geneva. It's an interesting event which will gather quite a few experts and leaders from private sector in academia in the field of artificial intelligence. And then you will have IGF 2017 second open consultation and MAG meetings in mid-June, which will discuss the program for the next Internet Governance Forum. VSIS Forum, also in Geneva, and European Security Week in Nice, Digital Assembly, European Digital Assembly in Valletta in Malta. It will be lovely weather if you plan to go not only for Digital Assembly, but also to visit Malta in June. It's still reasonable. It's not as hot as it gets in July and August. And then you have a Geneva Internet Law Summer School here at the University of Geneva, Barbados Internet Governance Forum, and ICANN meeting at the end of the month. As you can see, activities in Geneva will be really, really busy and intense. We will provide reporting from the main events, from artificial intelligence event, from the IGF, and from the VSIS Forum. Next. At the Geneva Internet Platform, we'll have, you have now 21st issue, launch of Deadliner. I don't know if Boeing is going to sue us for that. We just add R on deadline, but we may, if you have some other name, we may consider it. Basically, it deals with the deadlines for anything in multilateral, digital multilateral Geneva. When you have to basically register for the event, when you want to submit proposal, when you need to answer the call for the comments in application. Therefore, for all major events, you will be receiving deadlines warning 1 week, 1 day, and on the day on the event. Therefore, that was a simple tool which personally I'm horrible with deadlines. I found it as a helpful tool for myself. But discussing with a few diplomats here, they thought that it would be a good idea to have something that can alert them. Hey, there is this deadline coming in 1 week. You have to submit a paper or whatever. We'll have a reporting from Eurodig in Tallinn, and on the 7th of June, we'll have a graduation of our just-in-time course on digital commerce. Very interesting course. Few of you are participants in the course. It is a course which is basically addressing digital commerce in the context of the current policy processes, including WTO negotiations. We have very, very lively discussion, open and engaging discussion, and that's fun. We'll have a graduation ceremony on the 7th of June, where we'll discuss Bitcoin. It will be functional graduation ceremony. Therefore, the participants will get their degrees, but there will be discussion on Bitcoin. Then we'll have a discussion on reporting from the VSIS Forum 2017, and at the end of the month, we have a briefing on 27th of June. In addition, and I would like to invite you to, we'll send you some more information, Barbara will have a group of 30 diplomats from mainly small island states worldwide, who are coming to Geneva after being involved in the training since October, online training. They did online research, and now they do policy immersion. They will be here for 2 weeks. They will be obviously covering health, WHO, human rights, and other bodies, but one of the aspects will be internet governance, and we'll keep you updated about social events and activities which will be interesting to meet them. They're coming from Caribbean region, Africa, and Pacific. That would be, I guess, all from my side. We have now time for the comments, questions. First, well, Shall we do traditional first question from Richard? Oh, thank you, Richard, for keeping. This is one practice which is now
yeah, you meant. No. You mentioned that you didn't think that the Digital Geneva Convention would prevent the WannaCrypt attack. Well, if it were actually implemented the way Microsoft had suggested, it would have helped. Because one of the things that Microsoft is suggesting is that states should not stockpile exploits or flaws. And apparently, the WannaCrypt attack developed because the NSA had stockpiled some cyber weapons and then it was leaked. So if they had reported it as soon as they found it to Microsoft, Microsoft would issue the patch sooner, at least for Windows 8, 10, etc. Now, they still have a policy of not patching XP. So in that sense, it wouldn't have stopped the attack, but it would have made a difference.
Any other comments or question? That WannaCry also opened the question you mentioned of the responsibility of liability of Microsoft and internet companies for this problem. And this issue is extremely interesting. You know the argument, some people argue that any security and sort of surveillance agency, including NSA, cannot be forced to reveal their tools that they use. And their business is basically gathering information from hopefully in the legal way. Therefore, this is an interesting debate which is going on the few forums as a matter of principle. Should the NSA will be forced to do things differently? And what are the limits, since their function is to gather information worldwide? Therefore, there is an interesting conceptual debate which is going on the limits between human rights and security, and hopefully finding win-win solution if it is possible.
I thank you, Jovan. Actually, not a comment, but just an observation in terms of events coming up at the Human Rights Council. In the June session last year, we had the resolution, the Freedom Online resolution, and part of that resolution, we tasked the Office of the High Commission for Human Rights to prepare a report on the gender digital divide. And now this report has been out, so I presume that there will be probably a presentation or some events related to the findings that the High Commission would have come up with. So just wanted to share that. Thank you. I believe it is. I haven't looked at it yet because ITU Council, but yes.
Thank you. We have now. Oh, Barbara, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Ignoring our online community, it wasn't intentional. Hey, could I have just a glass of water?
They can't hear me. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it has been a very busy month, and this is reflected by a lively discussion in the chat. So a few highlights in the chat. I'm just going to mention a couple of questions and remarks that were made. On the economic questions, Romina raised a very important question, and that is the issue of Bitcoin or having a decentralized currency. Will this improve the economy or not? It's a very, very deep and complex question. Then on the Council of the Court of Justice of the EU ruling about Uber, there was some discussion between Michael and Amrita. Michael thought that that this ruling was very, very accurate, and he thought that tech companies get way too much leeway. And Amrita responded that although she agreed with the ruling in general, could the ruling not have a negative impact on innovative companies that are using the internet to provide services at a low cost? So this is also a very deep and complex question. And then we got a notification that the Nepal IGF is on 16 and 17 June. So it was a contribution. Nepal. And that there is much more, but these are the most important questions and dilemmas in the chat.
Thank you for update from Nepal about the IGF. I forgot to say that today, while we were discussing, you probably noticed the absence of Roxana. She's in Bern. There is a Swiss IGF, which is held today, and then we'll update our list with the Nepal IGF. And please send us information about other national and regional events. The first question of Bitcoin was intensively discussed during our course on digital commerce, and I guess that there are more questions than answers. It's completely unpredictable. As you know, it is questioning the global economy based on the fiat currency principle. Some people in our discussion argue that Bitcoin should be considered more as a gold than as a currency, or more as a stock than as a currency. But I guess, Michael, maybe you can comment later on, since it is your field of expertise. We have more questions than real answers. During our graduation ceremony on the 7th, we'll invite a few colleagues to reflect on the current situation in Bitcoin field. I completely agree about the impact of this potential judgment of the European Court of Justice on the question of innovation. And this is a big alert for the global policy community, and I guess a few colleagues around the table are involved in different bodies. If we don't create a reasonable and balanced policy discussion, which will take into consideration economic, technical, government, and other interests, we'll have the basically internet governance space shaped by courts. And it is already shaped with the right to be forgotten. In this case, if it happens, it will most likely kill the dynamism of the Uber and the related companies. And it is a big alert. I agree completely with the logic that there are serious issues that Uber has to address, including question of contribution to taxation, protection of the labor rights. There are issues that has to be addressed, but it is not, in my view, it's not the right way to address it in such a drastic of binary way, and basically to classify it completely as a transportation company. Michael, would you like to say a few words on Bitcoin? Sorry for calling you on this difficult question.
Well, I mean, I was actually going to comment on when you talked about the fact that there was only $106,000 paid, but the currency shot up and people having to buy it to be able to make the payments. So I think it went up over $2,000 for the first time. So that's not a currency, that's like gold. I mean, that's something speculative, right? If it can, more normal currencies, fluctuate very little, and certainly not because people need $106,000 worth to pay some ransom. So, I mean, there's plenty of interesting aspects of it, but it's not a currency replacement if it's this kind of speculative. And partly it's just because there's a limited amount, right? So even if it's growing a little bit, a small increase in demand can shoot the price up.
Well, with this, if you don't have any other comments or a suggestion, I would like to close today's briefing. Our colleagues here in Geneva can continue with some refreshment. We cannot offer it online, unfortunately, yet, but the data developments are moving very fast. Maybe we'll have soon 3D printers. And you made a lovely comment in our course about phyto protection on yes, 3D works. But we'll wait for some time till we will be able to print sandwiches and sweets. Thank you very much for your active participation, and to our online community for a great discussion. And see you soon for some of our activities or for the monthly briefing on 27th of June. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Oh, I'm sorry about that. So let me start again. Thanks for the alert. So I was just thanking Jovan for the roundup of developments in May, and also Barbara for wrapping up the questions and the comments and sharing them with Jovan for comments there. Please stay with us for the regional updates. Now there is, as Sorina indicated, there is a parallel room for the Southeastern Europe hub at diplo.adobeconnect.com/chub. If Barbara can post it again, can post the link again, that would be great. And we'll now hear the first update from Brazil. We have Luca Belli from the Brazilian hub. He will update us on the latest developments in Brazil, including how the WannaCry or WannaCrypt cyber attack impacted the country. And he will also summarize a few new legislation, digital policy related legislation. So over to Luca.
Good morning to everyone. Welcome to our monthly update on digital policies in Brazil. The month of May started with the announcement by ANAC, our civil aviation regulator, of a new drone regulation. The regulation has established a minimum age of 18 years old to be a drone pilot. The regulation has not specified particular requirements with regard to privacy protection, but it has established that the pilot will have to respect civil and criminal legislation, and also specific legislation with regard to individuals' rights, such as privacy. Brazil, on 4th of May, has launched its first satellite since 1998. This is a major step with regard to the expansion of internet coverage in rural areas, and the satellite is the fruit of an investment of 2.8 billion reais that will not only enhance internet access but also military capabilities and monitoring capabilities with regard to law enforcement agencies. The WannaCry ransomware was also a very important issue, specifically on 12th of May, when the ransomware affected Brazil. Both businesses and public administration were affected. Petrobras, the state-controlled oil giant, had to reboot its systems, and the National Supreme Court of Justice and also the public prosecutors' offices were temporarily offline and had to reboot their systems. The federal government has also signed the legislation that will enact the new unique civil identification system. This unique identification system has been welcomed in terms of efficiency, merging a lot of different documents into a unique system, but has also been criticized due to the establishment of a centralized database that is raising some concerns with regard to cybersecurity and also with data protection due to the fact that Brazil still does not have a general data protection framework. Lastly, last week we participated to the BRICS think tank symposium on cybersecurity and cyber economy in Chongqing, China. This is part of our new initiative on analysis of BRICS digital policies that over the next 2 years will put in place a mapping exercise and identification of best practices with regard to several digital policy issues. This is all for today, and we look forward to speak with you next month.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you, Luca, for the updates from Brazil. We will now hear the updates from Southeastern Europe from Sorina. We have Sorina next. She will mainly update us with regards to the CEDIG meeting, the third CEDIG meeting, which has just been held in Ohrid, Macedonia. So over to you, Sorina.
Since today is the first briefing after the Southeastern European Dialogue on Internet Governance, which took place last week, I will be talking briefly about the meeting. So the third annual meeting of CEDIG was held last week on 24-25 May in Ohrid, the Republic of Macedonia. The meeting brought together about 150 participants from what we call Southeastern Europe and the neighboring area, as well as from beyond the region. We had representatives of governmental institutions from the region, private sector companies, civil society organizations, technical community, as well as CIDICs supporting organizations ranging from Diplo Foundation to the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, Internet Society, the Council of Europe, and other supporting organizations. We had 2 days of discussions on internet-related issues that the community in the region considered as being relevant for the region, and this ranged from the usual introduction to internet governance, which is now a sort of a tradition at CIDIC, to broadband challenges and the digital divide, fake news and digital literacy, the Internet of Things and opportunities and challenges it brings for the region, cybersecurity, open data, and an issue which is very relevant for the region and rather specific, the internationalized domain names. All these sessions will be summarized or have been summarized in key messages. We are now working on finalizing them, and they will be published soon on CIDIC's website, and they will also be presented next week at the European Dialogue on Internet Governance. We are also working on the meeting report, which will be distributed to the Eurodig and also at the Global Internet Governance Forum. So this will be basically the input of the Southeastern European Internet Governance community into pan-European and global Internet governance processes. This year at CIDIC we also have 2 new exciting programs, I would call them. We had a fellowship program bringing together 16 participants from the region for discussions on developments and news, internet governance related across the region. And we also had a youth school which brought together 18 students from the region, and they had a pretty interesting debate on the first day at CIDIC on issues related to privacy and security. So with this program, CIDIC is trying to accomplish its objective of contributing to building the capacity of regional stakeholders to get more involved in internet governance processes from national to regional and international levels. So we hope these 2 initiatives will continue to grow as CIDIC continues to grow. Now that the meeting has wrapped up, we are basically starting the preparations for next year's meeting. So we invite the community to stay engaged and help us strengthen CIDIC, make it more meaningful for the region, for the regional community, and make this initiative even more worthwhile than it has been before. So stay tuned. The messages from our sessions will come soon. You will see what has been discussed there. There will also be recordings of the meetings, everything published on our website. And for those traveling to Eurodig next week, we hope to see you there. There will be a CIDIC flash session, and we will be talking about what happened last week in Ohrid. Thank you.
And the digest will be available soon on our website. And one last announcement, the newsletter for May will be available for download today in a few hours from dig.watch/newsletter. So thank you once again, and we'll see you again on the 27th of June. Bye.